Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago, one of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose. As long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts, Alex and Sean. On this episode, we have got a whole slew of brand new Chicago Bears. We've got excitement on the White Sox and Cubs pitching coming around, and we'll try not to spoil the Avengers Endgame for you. But first, I'd like to thank our... But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the HL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. Season is over now, but make sure you head on over to icehogs.com, pick up yourself a hat, shirt, jersey, and sign up for season tickets because it is one of the best deals in sports around. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. Alex, you did see Endgame, I believe, right?
Thursday night, last Thursday, 7 o'clock at the York Theater. Got there about an hour and a half before showtime. Got great seats, and oh boy, was it something. Yeah, I saw it Thursday at 8 p.m. at the ArcLight down in, I don't know if it's Old Town there, or what it's a Clybourne and on Clybourne. So, yeah, I saw that then, and then I saw it at the Norwich 6 on Friday at 7 o'clock. There you go. I'll see it again a second time pretty soon, I'm sure. Oh my gosh, I got to cover my mouth every time I want to blurt something out because there is so much to talk about. I feel like this time next week when we do our next show, we have to talk about it because if you are a Marvel fan, you have had over a week to see it. So I would assume that if you were a true Marvel fan, you would have seen it within at least a week. Absolutely. Yeah, it is. The moratorium is off and we are talking. But in the meantime, it was spectacular. I mean, everything that I could have hoped it was that and then some. Yeah, I mean, you got a little bit of everything in terms of emotions. I mean, you saw epicness, you felt sadness, you felt joy, you felt confusion, you felt just that feeling what you don't know how to process things. Everything you could imagine, you got. And what was so awesome about it is they didn't sell you short. I mean, it was a 3-hour movie, so they were not selling you short by any means. And it wasn't like 3 hours of fluff or, like an hour action, no. 2 hours of fluff. No, it was 3 hours. I don't know where you would have had a chance to go out and go to the bathroom or get more popcorn or whatever. I don't know where you would have done that and not missed something. Hey, I went to the bathroom right before the show started. It was no big deal. And I think it was a very easy thing to manage, not having to go to the bathroom. But you're right. There really wasn't a point which you could go to the bathroom and not miss something important. Every bit of that movie had something relevant in it. Yeah, the first showing I went to on Thursday night, they have a full bar there. So I had a couple of drinks and I brought in a beer with me. And I was like, I am testing my bladder. Wow. And that is bold. I was okay. And then I was like, all right, I've stretched my bladder out. It's ready to go 7 innings. For Friday, I went and got a giant lemonade and I ran out quick because the Norwich 6 theater is real small. And the theater was, literally you walk out and you're at the beverage thing. And I'd already seen it the day before. So I ran out quick and refilled it
and got a second lemonade.
John Lackey,
I was
his Buttercup give rides to people who need to go to the bathroom. Pay the toll. You have to pay him like a quarter, and you got to throw it in his quarter bucket, and then Buttercup takes you to the bathroom.
You gotta pay him in like a doubloon.
It's called
Some
the
old timey
Pony.
money.
He calls it the Pony Express.
Get her done, Buttercup.
Clank, clank.
The rest of the theater is all annoyed because they're just like clip clopping through the movie.
And every now and then you just hear a nice big ping when he spits Shaw into his spittoon.
You get some bold patron goes and complains to the manager, and they're like, this guy is making a scene in the theater, and they're like, I'm not saying anything to him. He just every time I look at him funny, he gets red-assed. I'm not going to let him tell him he can't be here.
He doesn't even call the theater ahead of time. He just shows up.
Just walks in and he's got his money bucket on like a hook, kind of like the bell ringers at Christmas.
He goes and buys popcorn and attaches it to Buttercup's mouth like it's a thing of oats.
People walk by and he just rings the bell, and if they don't acknowledge him, he rings it harder. And then to put a exclamation mark on it, he spits into the bucket and he goes,
and it's good. It seemingly happens every time someone says something important. I can't wait till next week's show so we could actually talk about the movie. You have no idea.
I know it. Like a guy at work saw it, and I was like, "Oh, thank goodness!" And so we had an hour-long conversation this morning.
Naturally,
yeah, it was like and then I had my one-on-one with my boss on every Friday, and I went in and I was like, "You look tired." He's like, "Yeah," he's like, "I took my wife and 3 kids to see the Avengers last night," and he's like, "We went to an 8:30 showing," and he's got all his kids are like 9, 10.
Boy, that would have gotten out really late.
Yeah. And I was like, man, that was bold. And he's like, yeah, it was. He's like, there was a lot of trailers. And he's like, we didn't get home till like midnight. It's like, yeah, good luck with that one.
Yeah, I know at our show, they only showed 3 trailers. One of them was Star Wars, so people were cheering during that, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, well, when I saw it on Thursday, there was only 3 trailers. It was Detective Pikachu.
Yep.
The Will Smith movie, and Star Wars. But
the Will Smith movie, not Aladdin.
No,
right?
it's like he's trying to kill a clone of himself, but a younger clone.
Oh yeah. Because I think at my theater it was Detective Pikachu, Star Wars, and Lion King.
Well, I didn't get Lion King, but then, I got Lion King on Thursday. On Thursday, there was like 27 trailers. It was.
That's what the Cinemark is like.
Yeah, it was. There was quite a few, and some of them just didn't make sense. Like, why? Why are you playing this before Avengers? Like, I don't want to see the trailer for the new Pride and Prejudice movie. I don't even want to see the Pikachu movie.
What the hell is Lawrence of Lachia?
Buttercup of Lachia.
The trailer, it shows like the desert. It's got like the classic shots from Lawrence of Arabia, which, as many know, is considered one of the greatest movies of all time. Some consider it the greatest movie of all time. But then just it sounds, and then suddenly you're like, "Oh God, they actually made this."
Oh my God. Yeah, the sequel, the Legend of Lackey Spittoon.
Ba-ching.
All right. So yeah, we not much to talk about if you can't have any spoilers. So
No, exactly.
I want to talk about this part. Damn it.
I want to talk about this character. I want to say what this character said.
Because something I said on the show did happen, like, before I saw the movie. It did happen, but different than I thought. And I was still like super excited when it happened. So I can't wait till next week because we will talk about it. So yeah, let's talk all of the new weapons that the Chicago Bears got.
Why don't we?
So this past Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, not only was it Avengers weekend, it was the NFL draft weekend. And for the first time in, I can't remember, I was not either at the draft or glued to my television because I saw Avengers twice and then I had to work on Saturday. So I was just keeping up on the radio. And it was a kind of a good time for it to happen because the Bears didn't have a lot of draft picks, and most of the draft picks they had were mid to late round picks because, well, we got Khalil Mack.
Kind of worth it, wouldn't you say?
You put Khalil Mack and Anthony Miller and David Montgomery and the rest of their picks, and then you grade it A+.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, the first pick they had was a third rounder, and they ended up trading up 14 spots to go get David Montgomery, the running back out of Iowa State. I would have put a lot of money that first pick they had was going to be a running back because it was, other than kicker, the most glaring hole on this team. Fair to say?
Well, yeah, especially after you trade away Jordan Howard.
Yeah, it wasn't like the cupboard was bare. We just signed a running back. We've got Tariq Cohen. We've got Ryan Nall. We've got Taekwon Mizell. So it's not like we wouldn't have somebody to play running back. It's just finding somebody to be productive in the system and fit what we're trying to do, which is what David Montgomery is.
Yeah, I mean, you consider where he was taken, 73rd overall, and you consider how many running backs can be drafted later. I think it kind of goes to show how highly David Montgomery is thought of, in my opinion.
Yeah, so the Bears didn't give up the farm to get him, but what they gave up was not inconsequential. So they ended up trading their number 87 pick. So they swapped third round picks. The Bears gave them their fifth round pick, which was number 162, and their 2020 fourth round pick, and they got back a sixth round pick. So they did give up picks, and Ryan Pace was on record saying that, when you're in that moment, you have 5 minutes to make the trade, both teams to call the league, confirm the trade, then get your pick in. And so they said they work through a lot of exercises of what it would take to trade up, to trade down, what they would have to give up to move certain spots, what would be a haul that would, or what trade that would benefit the Bears, would benefit, be a win for the Bears, a win for the other team, or somewhere even. And they said that based on moving up in this trade, what they gave up is what they would have expected when they did the exercise. They said it was a fair trade for both sides. So I'm fair with that. And they use several of the point charts where it assigns different point values to draft picks. So I'm fine with the trade because the guy they brought in is actually somebody that's really, I think, going to change the way that Matt Nagy calls his offense. And, nothing against Jordan Howard. I think Jordan Howard's a very good running back, but he just didn't fit with what Matt Nagy was trying to do. And Matt Nagy, I feel, changed the way he called some of his plays to try to fit Jordan Howard, and the two didn't mesh. And I feel like he can call the plays he wants to call, because David Montgomery fits what he's trying to do.
Some people described him as getting Kareem Hunt without him being Kareem Hunt.
Yeah, getting Kareem Hunt, because he's been described as like a Kareem Hunt like player, and I see a lot of Frank Gore.
Yes,
both
in his prime.
Yes, but David Montgomery's a high character guy, so that's a good one. Looking at him, he's just got great instincts, great vision, balance. He's like a human pinball. He led the nation in forced missed tackles each of the last 2 years. So that not just, like him just running through tackles. So last year alone, he had 100 forced missed tackles in 258 carries.
That's
100.
Not too shabby.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. And then he's got great hands. Didn't get a lot of catches, but when he does, it's natural. He's a natural hands catcher. And I think part of the reason that he fell is his 40 time was slower than I think a lot of teams look for in a running back. He had a 4.63 40, which is, a good second faster than I would probably run. But it's far from what they consider home run speed. But here's the thing. Emmitt Smith ran a 4.7. So, part of the running back game is you don't get a lot of chances to put on your home run speed. Most of the time, it's more important to be able to cut back, have good vision, use your blockers well, and break tackles. I think that's usually a lot more useful.
Well, that's kind of what the Bears pride themselves of. We talked about it last week, saying how the Bears in general, not just running backs, not just receivers, in general, they don't have what you call home run speed guys. You remember that conversation we had.
Yeah.
But they make it work.
But I'm excited because when you bring David Montgomery in, it's not a foregone conclusion that you're going to run the ball between the tackles. You can run out on the outside. You can run on the inside. You can dump him out for a pass. He can go out in a pattern. He can stay in and block. He's versatile, and that makes the Bears a less one-dimensional when certain guys are in packages.
Yeah.
But like I said, he reminds me a lot of Kareem Hunt and Frank Gore. They talk about what a hard worker he is. Not only a gym rat, but he's a film junkie too, which are good things to have. High character guy. And Pro Football Focus ranked him as the second best running back in this entire draft.
Yeah, I mean, he's clearly, like I said earlier, he's clearly a guy that was thought of highly. You see how many of these running backs get drafted in the later rounds, but to be drafted at that position, I think that says a lot about your talent. I think the Bears clearly had their eyes on this kid. They knew from the beginning that they were going to be replacing Jordan Howard. Maybe not necessarily replacing him, but upgrading their running back position, because when you think about it, you're not really replacing Jordan Howard because he's not a Jordan Howard type player who's a power back, but you're basically redoing the running back core around Tariq Cohen. And now I think it's safe to assume that Montgomery is going to be their number one back, or at least going to get a lot of touches, because as good as Tariq Cohen is, I don't see him being number one. He's going to be more versatile, and Mike Davis will be used in situations where you need a veteran back to pick up some yards.
Yeah, it's going to be Montgomery and Davis getting the lion's share of carries. Tariq Cohen's going to be used as an offensive weapon you're going to put him in different spots. He's going to be lined up in the slot. They might even line him up on the outside as a wide out. They're going to do a lot of different things with him, move him around. They're probably going to have a lot of two backs looks where with Montgomery and Tariq Cohen, and that's really going to cause issues because both guys can receive. Tariq Cohen's a home run hitter, and David Montgomery is a guy that can pound you for yards, not afraid of contact. It's going to create an issue. You don't know what they're doing. So it's going to create some matchup issues there, and that's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good way to put it. I think Coach Nagy's going to have fun with this kid. I really do.
Absolutely. And the cool thing about where the Bears are and the position they've put themselves in is they're able to literally take the best player available. Mm-hmm. The situation where you don't want to be in and is when you put your draft board together. So you put your draft board together is you rank, you rank guys within their position, and then you start compiling them as a big list. So your best guy on your draft board, second best. And as people get drafted, you cross them off your list or take them off the magnet board or however you physically do it. And then when you come to your pick, if you see a guy that you had very high that's still available, your best situation is to draft whoever it is. And, you improve that way. When you try to draft for need, a lot of times you'll pass up on a guy who's really good to get a guy that's probably not as good, but fills a position of need. So the Bears have put themselves in a position where there's no glaring holes other than kicker, especially when they've already drafted David Montgomery. So they really don't have any holes. So you get the next pick they had, which was 126, and they get Riley Ridley, who's Calvin Ridley's younger brother. So a good lineage there. And they had him with a really high grade on their draft board. And the Bears, Ryan Pace was talking about how excited they were because picks kept coming off the board, and they were like, he's still there. They said they had a much, much higher grade on him than 126. The thing about Riley Ridley is speed. Man, for a wide receiver, average speed. He's got 4.56. He had limited production at Georgia, but he might be one of the best route runners in this draft. Great route runner, really strong hands. His catch radius. So that's kind of explain catch radius is anywhere. Think about any position that you can catch the ball in. That's your catch radius. So if you can't catch anything more than 3 inches over your head, that's the top of your catch radius. And if you can't catch anything, that's below your knees, that's part of your catch radius. He's got really long arms. He can catch high, catch low. That catch radius is big. He's with his great route running and average speed, he's able to get great separation from cornerbacks. Similar production as Javon Wims last year, but I think he's a better player. And he's actually the 4th Georgia Bulldog that Ryan Pace has drafted.
Yeah, that's something, isn't it? It's like the Georgia Bulldogs have become the Bears farm system.
Yeah, and Riley Ridley, CBS Sports, their ranking had him as the 70th best player in the draft. He fell to 126. Walter Football had him as their 7th best wide receiver in the draft and had a 2nd to 3rd round grade on him.
Not bad. Not bad.
So you get him at 126. So you got to feel good about that. The 3rd pick they had was the 205th overall, which was the 6th round. And they picked Duke Shelley, cornerback out of Kansas State, 5'9", 180. He was second team all Big 12. Due to his size, 5'9", 180, not very big. He's going to be a slot corner because of the size. And ran a 4.46, which is pretty good speed. Amazing ball skills. Great technique. The thing is people asked, why did they draft this guy when they just signed Buster Skrine? Buster Skrine is 30 years old. So you're going to look to replace him sooner rather than later. And this is a later on pick that you're going to have to develop. So what you do is, Gesundheit is, this is a guy that you bring along slowly. And by the time that you're ready to move on from Buster Skrine, is you've got a replacement in-house. And that's the way you keep winning program, is you stay ahead of the curve, is you keep drafting pipeline players. So when you have to make hard decisions and let go of expensive players, you have got a younger, cheaper player already in your system, ready to go and replace them. And that's what Duke Shelley is.
Yeah, Buster Skrine really, to me, is kind of a veteran placeholder for the next wave of cornerbacks. And, hopefully this kid is one of them. He, like you say, he didn't get a lot of attention. He wasn't invited to the combine, but the Bears obviously liked him enough, and he seems to have good enough skills to be part of the team. So, yeah, I like the way you put it. It's a nice piece for the future.
Yeah, and if nothing else, with his speed, you can have him be a gunner on your special teams. So that's how you stay in the league. If you don't have the skill to be a starter, you keep being a special teamer until you get your chance.
Right.
And then with the first of their 7th round picks, the Bears drafted Kerrith White, the running back out of Florida Atlantic. And I saw a lot of people, they drafted a running back. Why would they draft another one? Here's the thing with Ryan Pace, is when he sees a weakness, he doesn't just go and get one guy. He gets waves of players to come in to try to fix that hole. So you're not going, oh man, well, we got this guy to fix this problem, because what if that guy doesn't work out or he gets injured or whatever, not as productive as you thought he would be, and you're in the same spot you were and you lose a year. And that was a Jerry Angelo type situation. Ryan Pace brings in multiple guys, so you have options. So your kick return game was terrible, and the rest of the league would, rather than kick it into the end zone, was kicking it short and making you return it. So you go out and you sign Cordero Patterson, and now you've got one of the best kick returners over the last several years, who you can use as an offensive weapon. And with your 7th round pick, you bring a guy who averaged almost 30 yards per kick return and he runs a 4.3 40. So
that's still my favorite free agent move of the offseason.
I love it too.
I know it sounds silly, but I thought it was just the perfect fit.
That, and it just gives another weapon to Matt Nagy. But yeah, this Kerrith White situation is great, because if you've got God forbid Cordero Patterson gets hurt, or you've got another guy who can actually return it and has experience doing it. Or if you see that, man, Cordero Patterson is working great for us in certain packages on offense, then you could use this guy as the kick returner so you don't bother trying to hurt him. So, I don't. That's
a good way to think of it.
I don't really expect him to compete at the running back position, but, with 4.3 speed with a running back build and a kick return experience, he's going to be a special teamer that you can be excited about.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the last of their 7th round picks, they picked Steven Denmark, cornerback out of Valdosta State. And Valdosta State's a D2 school, but it is like the Alabama of D2 schools. Like it's a powerhouse program. And Steven Denmark is a converted wide receiver. He runs a 4.46 40. He's 6'3", 220 as a cornerback. That's huge. So he's a height, weight, speed kind of guy. He's going to be a project because I think he only has like one year as a cornerback, or maybe 2 years, but most of his life he's been a wide receiver. So he's going to be a bit of a project, but that's the kind of the thing that you do in the 7th round. In the 7th round, anybody that looks like they're going to be a solid player has already been drafted. You're looking for characteristics. Either their specialty is one thing that they can come in and do, or it's a characteristic like height, weight, speed that, if it works out, you've got to steal. And if it doesn't, you tried.
Yeah. I mean, what harm can you do with a pick this late?
Yeah. It's a late 7th rounder. And if you can get a 6'3", 220 cornerback that runs a 4.46 and he works out, that's a weapon that, most people have, because that's a big enough corner that you can cover any tight end in this league. The problem is the tight end matchup is linebackers are too slow and cornerbacks are too small. And if you get a cornerback this big and that fast, that will neutralize most people's tight ends.
Yeah, exactly. I don't really know much about this kid at all, but I'll tell you what, Ryan Pace has had a great track record of finding guys in the later rounds. So, it gives you something to think about. I'm actually looking at the Bears depth chart right now. Just as it stands right now, you have the draft picks in there, obviously in a different color because they were just drafted. And you look around and you say, hey, some of these draft picks could fit right in there. If not, they're right there on the depth chart if needed. There's no guy on this board where I think he's going to be completely useless. Do I think there were other positions they maybe would have gone after? Of course. Maybe I thought they would have gone after a pass rusher or a lineman, an offensive lineman. But you look at what Ryan Pace has drafted and you say, hey, it could work. And if it doesn't, it's not a big deal. There's no first round busts that can happen this year.
And as I saw the draft picks, and there was only a handful, I'm like, I'm happy with the limited draft capital we have. I'm pretty happy. But then I saw that the undrafted rookies that Ryan Pace brought in, and I went, man, Ryan Pace just pulled off a coup. I mean, some of the talent that he brought in as undrafted players, they don't cost you anything. They don't cost you any draft capital. It's a little bit of money, and that's it. And they brought in, some of these are guys that are on guaranteed contracts, and some of them are on a tryout basis. Until they announce it officially on Friday, I'm not sure which is which, but from my count, they brought in 27 guys, and some of them are actually guys that could be really exciting. The first of those is Anthony Barr, the offensive lineman from Notre Dame. He was Quentin Nelson's replacement. He had an injury that made him drop, but he played for Harry Hiestand at Notre Dame. He's got NFL size, strength. He's got great technique. He's a little bit of a waist bender, but Harry Hiestand knows him and wanted to bring him in. That's a great sign. You also brought in Sam Mustapher, who was the center guard on that team. And, both those guys played for Harry Hiestand, both played offensive line for a good Notre Dame team. I think those are fantastic pickups.
Yeah, I agree. He went right to work in finding good fits. I can't complain one bit.
Yeah, he brought in another kicker, John Barron, who was ranked as the number 3 kicker in the draft. And here's the weird thing. So kickers, you look at kickers in college and watch college football games, and the kickers aren't very good. They don't have great technique. They don't look like NFL kickers. Running backs, wide receivers, they look like their NFL counterparts.
Right.
But kickers don't.
No, they don't.
And the thing is they don't teach kicking in college. They get converted soccer players, walk-ons, and they just let them do what they do. But where they get good is they go to these kicking schools, these kicking camps, and that's where you find the good players. And John Barron is coming from one of those camps as well. So he was a really good kicker in college, but he was a standout at one of the kicking schools. So that's what kind of makes him exciting. He was last year in college, he was 5 for 5 on 50+ yard field goal attempts. But he's a lefty. He's a lefty kicker. You don't see a lot
you
of
don't.
those.
And we keep getting teased with this Robbie Gould stuff. It's like you hear he wants to be traded, then you hear he doesn't want to be traded, then you hear he wants to be traded back close to home, which is here, and then that gets everyone all excited, and then they say that's not true. So I think it's pretty obvious, no matter what, that the Bears are going to be looking at other kickers outside Robbie Gould, because I think at the end of the day, Robbie Gould doesn't go anywhere.
Here's the thing is, and I think it was like, I can't remember where it was. It was one of the local news outlets. They posted an article and it said like the Robbie Gould is the elephant in the room. And I'm like, I don't understand why, because what can the Bears do? Robbie Gould is under control by the San Francisco 49ers. They placed the franchise tag on him. The Bears can't do anything. So until the 49ers decide, hey, we're going to make Robbie Gould available, he is under the rights of the 49ers. And even if, no matter what Robbie Gould says, no matter how much the Bears fans want him, that doesn't change anything. Robbie Gould it'll be like a Le'Veon Bell situation. Is Robbie Gould can choose to sit out all season, but that doesn't mean the 49ers have to do anything. They have the control. So until they make the decision of, we're going to actively try to trade Robbie Gould, then it's a fantasy conversation.
Yeah, as much as I would love Robbie Gould back, it's just I'm moving on from him. I think Bears fans should too. It's a nice thought, but I think Ryan Pace was never even considering it, to be honest with you.
I think he would definitely consider it, but he's got to be realistic and make a plan, because it's not looking very realistic. I mean, anything can happen. It's a weird league, but you could get into late in the training camp and the 49ers go, you know what? We suck. Why are we going to pay a kicker a bunch of money? Let's trade him, see if we can get anything, and we're going to lose anyway. Might as well do it with a cheap kicker, and if he costs us a game or two, they're just a better draft pick. I mean, they could come to that realization, and then the Bears could then be in the situation of going, well, we really liked Redford Jones. He's crushing the Redford Jones. He could be crushing the kicker competition, and then you'd be like, all right, do we go with the cheap Redford Jones, or do we trade draft capital and pay a bunch of money to Robbie Gould? But Ryan Pace has to make a decision to go forward and be prepared no matter what, because the more likely situation is Robbie Gould is not going to be available, and you have to be. And if he doesn't become available, then you have to be ready with a kicker for a team that's competing for a Super Bowl title.
Yeah, right on.
I'm not going to go too detailed in a lot of these undrafted players, but there's a few things about each one that I want to just mention. And then a lot of them I couldn't find anything. But they brought in a bunch of wide receivers. So Emmanuel Hall from Missouri He's a 4.3 40 guy. He was projected to be like a third or fourth rounder, and he fell to undrafted. He's got great size, great speed. He's a big play threat. And we talked about it before is, we thought the Bears could use some home run speed at the wide receiver position. And this is the guy. I think part of the reason he fell is he had a sports hernia last year that, limited him a little bit. And he's got some questions about his toughness and what he's willing to play through as far as pain. But the intangibles, there's the measurables, the speed, the big playability. He's just got it. Thomas Ives, he's a wide receiver out of Colgate. He's a height, weight, speed guy, 6'4", 207, 4.4 speed guy. And the NFL has this number called an RAS. And it's basically they take, if you look at the measurables from the pro days, the long jump, the high jump, and all those different, the 3-cone drill, all those drills, they basically combine those into a number that shows your raw athletic ability, and they call it the RAS. So 0 is you are just like you ride around in a rascal scooter and wash yourself with a rag on a stick. And then a 10 is just an absolute, elite athlete. Is Thomas Ives was a 9.01. So he's 6'4", 207 pounds, fast, and he's just an absolute beast of an athlete. So yeah, they brought that guy in. Spencer Schnell, wide receiver out of Illinois State. He's a 4.4 wide receiver guy, tough yards after a catch guy. He is, if he makes it, he's going to be the Bears version of Danny Amendola. He's 5'9", 185, but he is tough as nails, solid route runner, great yards after the catch, not afraid to go over the middle, and he's from Illinois State. And then my favorite name that the Bears got is wide receiver Ronquavian Tarver out of Utah State. 6'3", 215, 4.6 speed. He was a guy that wasn't really on anybody's radar, but he played really well in one of the college all-star games. Boosted up his mark. So the Bears were able to bring him in. Then there's the interesting one, Joe Walker. He was a quarterback at the University of Delaware, where Joe Flacco went. He converted to wide receiver, and 6'3", 205, 1 year as a wide receiver. And the interesting, so he's got a 4.5 speed, so he's pretty fast, and especially for a guy that's 6'3", 205. But as 1 year as a wide receiver, he had 34 catches, and he averaged 20 yards a catch.
Yeah, not bad.
So big playability there. They brought in Chris James, the running back from Wisconsin. He's a guy. He's just got nice hands. He's very Mike Davis light, like poor man's Mike Davis. Nothing special, but okay. Another interesting guy they brought in was tight end Dax Raymond from Utah State. 6'5", 255. Really athletic guy. His RAS score is a 6. Great route runner. He was graded to be a 3 to 5 round pick. He's a big yards after catch guy, and he's a converted wide receiver. So I'm kind of excited to see what we have with Dax Raymond. We got another tight end, Ellis Richardson from Georgia Southern. He's a converted quarterback. And it's funny because Georgia Southern is like a predominantly run team, kind of like Air Force. And he was their one receiving threat, and he actually looked pretty good. So he's a project guy. But I'm excited to see what they have with him. They brought in a couple other offensive linemen, Blake Blackmar from Baylor. He's 6'5", 325. He's a total road grader guy. Not a very good pass blocker, but mean, nasty guy that just will run people over that you want to run behind. Joe Lowry out of Ohio. He's another big road grader guy, not athletic at all, but 6'7", 310. He's a guy that is just going to blast through you on a run block. And then they brought in Marquez Tucker from South Utah, who's 6'1", 300 pounds. He played tackle, but that at 6'1", they're going to have to move him inside to guard center. Great technique guy. He's a technique finesse guy rather than a road grader. Jonathan Harris out of Lindenwood. He's a guy that's 6'5", 290. In 2018, 54 tackles and 6 sacks in one season from Lindenwood. And then Lawrence Marshall from Michigan. I love Michigan, but he's a guy that was really highly recruited out of high school and didn't perform well in college. He was just meh. But he's a really talented guy. So hopefully he can be one of those guys that does better in the pros than he did in college. One I'm really excited about is Mateo Betts from Canada. This guy is a legit pass rusher. I mean, legit. He had 35 and a half sacks in his college career. His RAS, the athletic score, is a 7.84, 6'3", 254, 4.740. I mean, with legit pass rushing moves. You watch him play in college, and these offensive linemen they had no idea how to deal with him. It was like a Khalil Mack playing against U of I, and them trying to figure out how to block him. It was unreal. And he was a snub from going to the combine. So I'm really excited to see what they have with him. And then they got another edge rusher, Chuck Harris out of Buffalo, which is the same school Khalil Mack went to. And you read through some of the notes about him and watch some of the film. Very Khalil Mack-like, power and length, 6'3", 265. So kind of excited about that. They got a linebacker from Western Illinois I don't know anything about. A cornerback named Clifton Duck from Appalachian State. Now, this guy, he had 13, he only played 3 seasons, 13 interceptions, and 11 of them were in his freshman and sophomore year. And you're like, well, why would the big production drop in his junior year where he should be at his best? They didn't throw to him. Nobody threw because he was such a ball hawk. So I'm kind of excited to watch Clifton Duck. Quack, quack. That's quacktastic. Cornerback Joshua Stimmons out of a school called Limestone. I don't know anything about him, but I read that he was a standout at one of the All-Star games. And then they brought in a safety cornerback, Doyin Jabawu out of Fort Hays State. He's another big kid, 6'2", 200 pounds, ran a 4.6 40. So another big defensive back. Darius Pickett, safety out of UCLA, 6 foot, 200 pounds, not very athletic or fast, but really high football IQ guy. He always knows the right place to be. Those are kind of guys that you like to have around because they can play better than their God-given talents because of the reading recognition and understanding of the scheme. They picked a guy from a small school in suburban Philadelphia called Widener named Jordan Powell. Great blitzer. He's a safety, but a great blitzer, 6 interceptions. They brought in 2 more kickers, Emmett Carpenter from Minnesota and Alex Kelson from McNeese State, and a long snapper who's from South Suburban Orland Park.
Our neck of the woods.
So the Bears were busy. They did not stop when when Mr. Irrelevant got his pick, the Bears just kept going and brought in another 27 guys.
Nice.
So it'll be fun to see what they have and if they've got, any diamonds in the rough, because, when I was younger, is undrafted rookies, they were just worthless. Like none of them ever made it. And even as I got a little bit older, they were guys that you started to learn who they were, and you were like, and there's always one that's got like some sort of lore around him, and he's like the message board favorite guy. And Ryan Nall became one of those guys, Garrett Wolf, and you've got these guys that you're like, oh, so excited about. But over the last few years, there's been a lot of players that are undrafted that really have become contributors to teams. And
you hear on every broadcast, oh, this kid was undrafted, but look at what he's done.
And so you've got these players that are coming in and doing things. And then you start looking back, and really a long time ago, when the draft was a lot more rounds, you saw some really great names that were picked after round 7. So there's definitely guys that are going to be quality players that weren't drafted, and you give them the opportunity and they make it work out. So yeah, kudos to the Bears to bring in 27 guys, because you know what? The worst that happens is you give them a paycheck and they don't work out, and it's a few $1,000s. That's not our money. It's Virginia McCaskey's money, and I like spending other people's money. Give them, a few $1,000s. They don't work out. No harm, no foul. But if they work out, that's how you build yourself a championship team.
Yeah, said it. Couldn't have said it better myself.
So you want to talk a little baseball?
Sure.
I guess we talk about I guess we can talk about the Cubs here. The Cubs had a nice win yesterday. And I'm not even going to call it a nice win. It was a needed win.
An excruciating, painful, annoying, head-banging win.
But here, you may disagree, but I feel after you go a certain point in extra innings, so, if you go 10 innings, even 11, and you lose, man, it sucks. But when you get into the 13, 14, 15, 16 inning games, and you really are burning through your bullpen, and, you're tiring guys out, I feel at that point, those become huge games that you need to win, because coming out with a win is a big moral victory. You go out with a loss and you just sort of hang your head on those, because it's not like a 9-inning loss where you're just like, you know what, we're going to lose 50 to 80 times this year. Those are the tough ones to swallow.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. It's like you go all this way and then
yeah. And, and this game was one of those ones that as you watched it, and how many times did the Cubs have multiple guys on or the bases loaded with 0 outs, 1 out, and didn't score any runs? And you're just like, man, this is going to be a game that the Cubs just give away.
Oh, yeah. When they didn't score with bases loaded, nobody out, I was certain they were going to lose in the next inning. And then they loaded the bases with 1 out. They didn't score there. Ben Zobrist got on base, which was essentially a leadoff double because of the error. And then they had the 2 on, 1 out, and all ending with Contreras being thrown out trying to steal home. They left an absurd number of guys on base. And the fact that it was all won thanks to Ben Zobrist driving in Tyler Chatwood, who hit a booming double off the wall. It sums up baseball weirdness so poetically.
Wait, Tyler Chatwood, who hit a booming double with his 333 batting average and his 2.5 ERA.
MVP.
And Tyler Chatwood, who's got a 1,000 OPS.
MVP. And when you think about it, Tyler Chatwood was a hero, not just with the bat, but he comes in bases loaded, 2 out, strikes out the guy on a high 90s pitch, and then he pitches a nice scoreless inning and sets himself up for the win.
It's a nice problem to have too many starting pitchers. And everybody has shown so far this year, all 6 of their starting caliber pitchers all have shown really good stuff at some point this year. John Lester is John Lester, threw a gem that the Cubs couldn't score any runs for him coming back from injury. Looked fantastic. He's been fantastic this whole year. You've seen really high ups and downs from Kyle Hendricks, but you've seen some ace stuff. Quintana has had some ace stuff this year. Cole Hamels has had ace stuff this year. Yu Darvish had a couple of really good starts.
His last start in Arizona, it looked like it was going to be a disaster. He gets out of it, and then he cruises the rest of the way.
And we'll talk about that in a minute. But, then you've got Tyler Chatwood, who's been really good. And it's a great problem to have because, if nothing else, suddenly Tyler Chatwood becomes a guy that you can flip at the deadline if you need to.
That, or you could just rely on him for being valuable on your team.
That you could do, too.
I mean, look, he made that great start against the Diamondbacks at home, and then yesterday he did what he did. And, it may be a small sample size, but I'd like to think that his confidence is really up right now.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's part of it. We briefly talked about Yu Darvish, great start in his last time out. And I think part of it is if you give Yu Darvish a lead, he pitches better.
You know what I've noticed about Yu Darvish this year, which I think is a huge positive as opposed to last year? Well, there are a number of things, but
he's actually pitching?
Well, that, but that's a valid point. I can't argue that. But last year, you see the jams that he'd get in, he'd crumble. This year, he gets out of them for the most part.
Yeah, but I think part of it is I think, the offense can come through for him and give him a little bit of a lead. He just starts pitching a lot better, pitching with confidence. And I know a lot of pitchers pitch better with a lead because you don't have the pressure of, man, one pitch and I could lose us this game. It's, if you have a 4-run lead, you go, no matter unless the bases are loaded, you're like, no matter what I do with this guy, we still have the lead. I'm cool. And you go out there and you pitch aggressively. And I feel like that's a boost to his confidence. And Yu Darvish it's not the stuff. It's all mental.
He just needs to cut down on those walks. I mean, that's the thing. If you look at Yu Darvish, it's weird. He's given up a number of home runs, but other than that, you don't really see him get hit very hard. Like, he doesn't get slapped around the ballpark. It's a lot of the walks that get him in trouble. You can live with solo home runs. If he's not walking guys and they're hitting for him, you can live with the solo home run or two. Like in the last game, the one run he gave up was a solo home run. It was only one of the 2 hits he gave up in the entire game, but it was a 7-0 lead at that point late. So it was like, all right, it's a solo home run, whatever. And he just came right back and ended the inning and got himself a quality start. I think
absolutely.
Innings 3 through 6 of that game in Arizona was the best Yu Darvish looked as a Cub, period.
Absolutely. I mean, the next step for him is probably to string consecutive starts like that together. And then after that, maybe maybe pitch 7, 8 innings.
Oh,
At
that'd be
least
nice.
at least 7. That would be huge. But what the hell is going on with Kyle Hendricks?
Well, he had that one really good start, and then the next one was.
It was arguably the worst I've seen Kyle Hendricks.
I didn't see that game. I was at a friend's house, but yeah, that based on the box score was pretty bad.
It was just he kept getting hit. I mean, it wasn't it. A lot of times he gives up, that one bad pitch that gets hit out of the park and it's home run. I don't think he didn't give up a single home run in the game.
They just slapped the ball around the ballpark.
Yeah, it just constantly hitting him, which is weird. That's part of the reason why I call it probably the worst I've seen him. Is people were hitting him and hitting him solid. He gave up 10 hits, 7 earned runs.
No bueno.
Just no bueno. No bueno at all. But you look at it, and the Cubs have sneakily brought this all back around, and they have surpassed the Milwaukee Brewers in the standings.
They have. There's just one problem: is that the Cardinals are red hot, and they look.
We don't speak that foul language in this podcast.
Well, I'm sorry, it's true, but there's a pretty notable series coming up starting this Friday at Wrigley Field against those Devil Birds.
Damn Devil Birds! Don't tell me my business, Devil Birds. But the Cubs have snuck past the Brewers, and it's funny. We're starting to see things shape up the way we thought. They'd shake up. Pirates sort of dropping to the bottom. I thought the Reds would be better than they are.
I think a lot of people did.
And that's not to say, we're still pretty early in the season, but the Brewers have come back down to earth.
Their pitching is not good at all.
No, we've all been saying that. Last year, it just suddenly everybody had a career season, and Christian Yelich suddenly can't hit outside of Milwaukee, and probably somebody stealing scientific pitches. But if you don't have everybody having career years at the same time, suddenly the Brewers become, back down to earth. It's them damn Cardinals.
Yeah, they're hitting. Their pitching is all right, but they're really hitting the ball, so that's a problem.
Yeah. But what's funny is we've been beating up on the Diamondbacks. They've got a good record. They're a good team.
They do. I don't think it's going to last, but yeah.
Just imagine if you take out those Cubs games they played. Man, they would be right up there for the division lead with the Dodgers.
Yeah, their offense has been doing a lot of work, and they got Kyle Hendricks, but Jose Quintana, he gave up the 3 runs and was pulled early, but his pitch count wasn't high, and I thought if he went another inning or two, he would have had another quality start. I thought Quintana looked pretty good outside one hanging breaking ball to Peralta, but the Cubs pitching, he's done a good job of containing them for the most part outside that one game.
It's weird. If you're somebody that just looks at Quintana straight from the box score for the Cubs this year, you're like, meh, he doesn't look that good. But if you really watch the games, he's pitched really well for the Cubs this year.
Yes, he has. And it's really nice to see.
Yeah, and you can't. He's like a perfect example of why you can't just look at the box score on a pitcher sometimes. Because he's been really good for the Cubs.
The location has been spot on, spectacular.
Yeah,
that's one of the things I love seeing the most is the location and the mixing of the pitches. It goes to show what happens when you throw more than a fastball.
Yeah, you add in pitch and suddenly it changes the dynamic of what you're doing and throws batters off.
For sure.
But from what we saw the first couple weeks of the season, the Cubs their bullpen has really turned it around. I mean, that's been the biggest upgrade so far is what we're seeing from the bullpen. And they're doing it with who knows if Brandon Morrow will pitch for the Cubs this year.
I don't know.
And you're cobbling this together, and you've got Carl Edwards, who got sent down to the minors, and then whatever his freak injury was. So you're doing it without those two guys, who are two guys that going into the season you had high expectations for, and you're still able to turn this around, especially from the rough start you had. I think that's just a huge victory for the Cubs.
Yeah, I still think they're going to need some more help. I still think that it's still something that needs to be worked on, but it's at least encouraging to see it be better.
Yeah, and then you're finally starting to see your two superstars in Bryant and Rizzo start to heat up a little bit. I mean, they've got a long way to go.
Bryant's looked much better. He's hitting the ball, and even his outs are well struck.
Yeah, I mean, they're both starting to look better. They've got a long way to go. What is the current batting average here? Bryant is still at 229 and Rizzo's still at 214, but Rizzo is at 214 batting average with an 802 OPS.
Yeah.
So when he hits it, he's hitting it hard and far.
Yes, he is.
But so you're starting to get some of your offensive players to hit the ball. And now you just got to get Schwarber back into it.
Yeah, he's been really scuffling, though. The past few games, he's been hitting the ball a lot better, but overall, the past few weeks, it's been brutal for him. It really has been.
Yeah, he's had some moments looking lost. And it's weird. He goes from like looking like the most confident guy in the world with a great eye up there and a good swing to suddenly just looking baffled.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to see that consistency eventually.
Yeah, absolutely. Otherwise, he becomes a trade candidate, doesn't he?
Could very well.
Because he can't play center. He's definitely a corner outfielder. And, you got to make room at some point.
Yeah, there's a number of guys that are going to be trade candidates, I think. Two of them are in the minors.
Yeah.
One for a reason about struggling on the field. The other arguably shouldn't even be here, but, that's neither here or there.
So we've got the issue of a certain spousal abuser coming back.
He has no place on this team, if you ask me. Baez is your shortstop. He's your superstar. Daniel Descalso and Ben Zobrist command second base. You also have David Bodie.
That's my point exactly. Is regardless of, I don't think he has a place on this team for character issues.
Well, yes,
but you look at it from a baseball perspective, and why would you move Javi Baez when he's having back-to-back MVP type seasons?
I don't know. They gotta make a room for a 240 hitter and a career 702 OPS batter. I don't know. What do I know?
Yeah, so you're not going to do that. And then second base is, you've got to have at bats and playing time for Daniel Descalso, Ben Zobrist, and David Bodie.
Mm-hmm.
And David Bodie is a guy that has been really good for you. He's a guy, he can play third, he can play second, and he's got a 900 OPS right now, and he's had some big home runs for you. Daniel Descalso has been a solid bat for you. Ben Zobrist is Ben Zobrist. So where does, what does Addison Russell bring to this team that he should be taking playing time and at bats away from any of those other four guys?
Distraction and bad
Because
press.
that's essentially what he's doing.
That's what he brings.
Yeah, he brings nothing good. The best you can hope for is he does really well in his stint in Iowa, and you can trade him. I think that's the best you can do with him, right?
I think at the end of the day, he's not going to be here long term. I still think he's going to play for the Cubs in the major leagues, but I don't think he's going to be a Cub for much longer. I think they're going to try to salvage some value with him and trade him for some relief pitching, because there'll be teams out there that would be willing to get him. I do believe that, though I don't think it's necessarily the right way to approach things. I just think that's kind of how it's going to go down. That's all I can think of, really. When you have Nico Horner in the wings, when you have Javi Baez, when you have all these guys, there's just no point to me in making room for a subpar hitter, regardless of what happened. There really isn't.
Yeah, there's no sense in it, and it's a tough position because you can just let him walk for nothing. You can try to salvage something, and this is a legitimate question. I don't know how many times has somebody gone through a spousal abuse situation and stayed with the team that they were on and not moved along. It doesn't seem like that happens very often.
Yeah, I know it's happened, but in this day and age, you see it a lot less.
Yeah, it's usually they move on, change of scenery type things.
But why are they so hell-bent over a guy who isn't even good?
No, he is not blossomed into what we thought we were getting when we traded.
We thought we
Jeff
were getting
Samardzija.
an MVP. That has not even come close to happening.
Joe Madden told us he was going to be an MVP someday.
Yeah, well, he ain't.
He is not. Unless it's the most vicious person.
No.
So I hope the plan is to just kind of salvage something, because I don't see the benefit of bringing him to this team, especially when they're starting to figure it out. I think he just is a distraction.
It's gotten worse. The distraction, the bad press, it's gotten worse as time has gone on.
Yeah, but what about the story where the Cubs are trying to suppress negative questions about Addison Russell?
I saw that. Would I be surprised if it's true? Unfortunately, the way they've handled this, not particularly. But
Sorry, go ahead.
How do I say this? Would I like to see a bit more evidence of this being true? Yes, I would. Again, I'm not saying it's not.
Here's my thing about it is, listen, I realize that people in sports are willing to overlook a lot of bad behavior for the good of winning, creating a winning program. I get it.
Unfortunately.
Yes, I understand. But the thing is Theo doesn't have a history of trying to do anything like this. If you ask any of the people that cover the Cubs for a living, like not just baseball, but cover the Cubs for a living, none of them have ever had an experience like this. People have talked about in the Cubs in their history where the Cubs have come to them and been like, hey, you're being a little rough. Can we ease up? And they say no. and then that's it. But there's never been a history of this, and the fact that it is coming third hand. Somebody told me this happened, and we don't know who the person who's claiming it happened to. We don't know who that is, and we don't know who from the Cubs organization was orchestrating this, and we don't really know exactly what it was that they were doing. So it's a lot of unknowns, and it doesn't have right now a lot of factual base for me to be upset by.
And I don't really know how to feel about it, because I feel like I should be at least a bit angry about it but I mean, just for the fact that I think they've handled this Russell situation pretty poorly as it is. And that's why I'm inclined to believe that maybe something like this happened. But again, when I read that report, I didn't actually see where like they said who said that happened. You know what I mean?
I mean, it could have been a situation where, it could have been a situation where somebody that doesn't have normal press credentials came in and was asking really inappropriate questions and was told that they would be asked to leave. That's in the realm of possibility.
Yeah.
And it's not so much protecting Addison Russell, but keeping the professionalism of the journalism access. And I mean, that's a possibility. And then because somebody got butt hurt and, became a game of telephone where they exaggerated and then somebody exaggerated from what they heard and it turned into a thing. I mean, that's a possibility as well. And, unless somebody's willing to say something, it just seems like a lot of hearsay.
Yeah, I don't know for sure, but I guess we'll see if anything develops from that.
Do you have any more Cubs talk you want to make?
I will say this. I was really happy to see not only Javier Baez continue an MVP-like performance so far, but to see him come up so big like in that game against the Dodgers. And just overall, him and this team as a whole, there's technically one more game in April, but no matter what they do in Seattle tomorrow night, they did exactly what we asked them to do in April after that rough start. And they're back above 500. No matter what, they will be above 500 going into May.
It's a night and day difference. So let's talk a little White Sox. I guess I want to lead with the pitching performance yesterday from the White Sox.
Yeah, 19 strikeouts.
20.
Did they get 20?
Yeah. Reynaldo Lopez had 14, Fry had 2, Herrera had 2, and Colome had 2.
And Kerry Wood is proud. So is the big unit.
I mean, it was not one person, but
still
a team effort.
Yeah.
Reynaldo Lopez, 6 innings, 14 strikeouts, 3 walks, 2 hits.
That's pretty dang good.
That's a hell of, especially considering he was like, what, a 7.8 ERA guy going into that game.
He needed that performance.
He really did. He's a guy that I don't know if before last season you thought of him being as a frontline starter for you in the future, but you saw so much of it wasn't just a flash in the pan with him. You saw some really good stretches of pitching performance from him last year. And this year you're like, well, what the heck happened? And to see a game like this, you're like, okay, well, it's still there. It's really good. And I honestly think he could be a top 3 starter for a really good White Sox team going forward.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to try to prove he's a valuable piece, and I think that's a good building block for him. And, hopefully that for him, that gets his confidence back.
I mean, that's the hope. That's the big hope there.
Yeah, because you look forward and you say, okay, this White Sox pitching staff as a whole has not been very good, but you have so many young guys right now. Michael Kopech's going to come back next year. You hope Dane Dunning will be back in 2021. Dylan Cease is going to be coming up soon. So, I mean, if you get good performances consistently from like Rodon, Cease when he comes up, Reynaldo Lopez, you won't worry too much about what Ivan Nova and Irvin Santana are doing because they're not going to be part of the team much longer. They're just kind of placeholders.
Isn't Santana not part of the team right now?
Oh yeah, I think they released him, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, you're not a good team right now. You've got some really sparkling performances. You're getting ready to see who's going to be part of the future. And Reynaldo Lopez looks like, suddenly I think, I think we've got a guy here. And Rodon is a guy that I don't know, like at some points you're like, man, he's figuring it out. And then you get a game like, what do you have? Was it Friday or Thursday where he pitched 3 innings and gave up 8 runs?
I think that's what it was, something like that.
It was atrocious. And then Fulmer comes in for 3 innings and gives up another couple runs. And both of those guys have 5 ERAs. It's funny, the guys that you really thought were going to be, I mean, at one point you were like, yeah, when the White Sox win the World Series, it's going to be Chris Sale, Jose Quintana. It's going to be Rodon. It's going to be Fulmer. And it's going to be none of those guys.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, 2 of them already gone. Fulmer is not going to be anything. He's going to be a middle relief guy that's not very good, that you're going to try to move on from once you get better. And Rodon is showing that he just doesn't have the consistency to be a front end guy. Maybe he can latch on towards the back. He's got amazing stuff. He just can't put it together. And when you've got a guy like Reynaldo Lopez, who is younger and, just put together sparkling performance, and you've got some guys in the minors that you are really high on, suddenly you're like, all right, what are we going to do here with Carlos Rodon?
Yeah, I'm still not fully giving up on him. I think he's shown enough that he can be at least a valuable piece of this rotation, but I think the Sox are looking ahead at guys like Dylan Cease and Michael Kopech to kind of take those reins.
I'm not saying you give up on him, but he's not one of your top 3 guys. He's a back end of the rotation guy. You're looking at Kopech, you're looking at Dylan Cease, you're looking at these other guys that you're like, wow, these are going to be our front end guys. You've got Reynaldo Lopez, who's putting together gems like yesterday. And so then you're like, okay, well, Carlos Rodon is far better than some of the garbage we have on the back end of our roster now. If we can make, this guy the bottom of our starting rotation, that just makes us that much better. You got Tim Anderson with the game-winning home run against the Tigers. Was not afraid to throw the bat again.
Yeah, he's going to keep doing what he's doing. 21 hits, I think they had that game.
He's not going to apologize for it. They had a lot of hits. It was lots of hits. 21 hits. Tigers had 15. There was 23 runs scored. Not a single error.
That's something. When
that
you
really
think
is
about
something.
it, yeah.
How many? Usually, when you see that many runs scored, there's some errors in there, some big ones. How many home runs were there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 home runs in the game.
That's a lot of homers. Even in that park, which is known for being a hitter-friendly ballpark.
You know what that marked in that game?
Hmm.
Miguel Cabrera hit his first home run of the season.
Yeah, that's true.
He's batting 300, one home run. That's weird.
Well, unfortunately he ain't what he used to be, but hey.
That old mare.
The old gray mare, ain't what he used to be.
I feel like the White Sox only play the Royals, the Tigers, and the Orioles this season. Do they play anybody else?
I know, right?
Well, the Cubs really only play the Diamondbacks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I guess so. Tim Anderson still hitting the ball well. Big hit. Confidence from him. Not afraid to throw the bat, and good for him. You know what? Get him out. Let him throw his bat. As long as he's not throwing it at somebody, let him throw that bat. Yohan Moncada's still looking fantastic. I really think that there's a bright future on this team. And
yes, there is.
You need a little luck on your side, and we talked about it with the Cubs. When the White Sox were first starting in this rebuild, and I guess not first starting, but when they were still figuring out what they were doing, is you need a lot of luck, and that was part of what the Cubs is. They got a lot of luck. Is a lot of guys panned out sooner than we expected and better than we expected, and the White Sox, people were like, oh, look at all this talent. They have so much talent in every position in the minors. But you know what? Is not all those guys end up being what you expected them to be. And that's part of why you've gotta stack so many players, because even once you got them in your system and they look like they're going to be good, it doesn't always pan out that way when you get to the bigs.
Luckily for them, they have an embarrassment of riches.
They really do have an embarrassment of riches. But you see how quickly the things can change, with pitcher injuries, position player injuries. Eloy just went down with an injury.
Could have been a lot worse, luckily, though.
Could have been a lot worse.
Could have been a lot worse.
But we don't know how bad it is yet.
No, you can only hope for the best.
Yeah, so they said they're going to reevaluate it in 2 weeks. He's in a walking boot right now, but it's ligament damage. So in 2 weeks, when he starts walking on it again, maybe he goes, oh, I'm ready to do a rehab start, or maybe I can jump right back in. But it might be a situation where it's another few weeks.
You hope.
I would not be surprised. Yeah, I would not be surprised that this was like a 4-week injury.
Yeah, that'd be a shame, but you got to take care of it. You don't want to take any chances.
Yeah, if you're gonna take away time from him, take it away now in a season that's kind of lost anyway. It's just him getting this is just him getting his feet wet. You want him healthy when you're actually trying to win ball games.
Yeah, no matter where you're at this year, you don't want to rush him back.
Yeah, the funny thing is, this is totally going to bring in the people. Eloy Jimenez should just be a DH.
Well, I do kind of think that is his future, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah, I just give the kid a chance. I feel like DH is the position that players go to die, the slow, painful deaths.
And you don't want that to happen.
No, you just, there's a lot of guys out there that need to play in the field to be productive hitters.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of guys that you think, oh, you're a good hitter. You just go up there and you bat. But if you just sit on the bench the whole time until, oh, it's my turn, every couple of innings, oh, it's my turn to go up and bat, you don't feel like you're part of the game.
Right, unless you're old, then you can afford that.
Yeah, at that point, you're a professional. Either you can do it or you can't. When you're younger, it's hard to just sit there and then suddenly go from nothing to game mode.
Yeah, that's true.
I I don't really have much else to talk about. I don't know about you.
I don't either. I mean, Bulls and Blackhawks are done. We'll wait for the draft. Wait to cry at the draft lottery for the Bulls. Fully prepared to cry,
Yeah, we still got
but also not be surprised.
we still got another couple weeks before that draft, isn't it? Like the 14th. Or something?
Yeah.
Why does it take so long to do that?
Why can't it be like first week of May?
Yeah, I'm in for that.
Right?
Maybe we'll try to get Big Dave in to talk Bulls with us, and I'm sure he's seen Endgame.
Oh, of course. I know he has.
Yeah.
I think I've seen him tweet about it.
So we'll try to get Big Dave, and
maybe he was at the theater where John Lackey had Buttercup giving people rides. I say we just ask him that out of the blue, and then he'll be like, "What the hell are you talking about?"
You'd be like,
and we'll just be laughing.
You didn't get manure all over your kicks, did you? Buttercup manure.
You're like, what?
It's like, what the hell are they talking about? But I think that's going to do it for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. I want to thank everybody so much for listening. Please hit subscribe however you listen to podcasts, whether that's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, or the TuneIn app. Share this podcast with your friends. That's how we grow the podcast. And follow us on social media at ShyFanPat1, at Swerski Sports, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com. Again, thank you so much for listening. And until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like number New Yorkers. Smoking crack is not legal on planes. Bears 31 to -7. The Bears.
Oh, when the Bears go bearing down.